Hilchos Shar Avos Hatumos Perek Asiri, the laws of the remaining primary sources of impurity, chapter 10. Another chapter in the context of rabbinic impositions of impurity, but it begins with actually a biblical concept. That's the concept called Tvul Yom. Tvul Yom means that a person, when he becomes impure, needs to go to the mikveh, but even after you go to the mikveh, you're not fully pure yet, till sunset or till nightfall. That's called Tvul Yom. A person who immersed by day is waiting for sunset for nightfall. And there's a biblical level of impurity there, but the rabbis defined it and gave the parameters for the rules that govern his impurity. That's what we're going to see today in the beginning of the chapter. Then at the end of the chapter, we're actually going to get a very nice summary of all the types of impurity that are possible to be imposed on every type of category. On people, on utensils, on pottery, on food, and on drink. But we begin first with the Tvul Yom. It says that Rambam halacha aleph kol amitame ba'av me'avos hatumos, anybody, anything that becomes impure from a primary source of impurity, bein adam bein kelim, whether it's a person or a utensil, harihu rishon l'tuma k'mei b'yarna, they become a rishon. It goes down one level. Av is a father, rishon is first degree. Ad sheyitbal, till you go to the mikveh takes you away from that impurity, but not fully. Taval, once you go to the mikveh, harihu k'sheni l'tuma, you remain like a second degree. Impurity, ad sheyariv shimshay, till you go to nightfall, till the sun sets, or really till the stars come out. And there's a biblical source for this. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, b'mayim yuva, it must be brought into the water. And still, even after the water, even after the immersion, v'tamei ad ha'erev v'toher, he remains impure till evening and then becomes pure. Hakasuv kara l'tvul yom tamei, which means Torah is essentially calling a tvul yom, somebody who went to mikveh by day, still impure till the nighttime, till ad ha'erev. Halacha Bey says the Rambam, echad tvul yom mituma chamura. It doesn't matter which kind of impurity you're coming out of. Whether you went to the mikveh for a severe impurity, you went to the mikveh for an irregular discharge, for becoming impure from a corpse, from tsaras, or you're a lower level, less severe impurity. You're going to the mikveh for becoming impure from a rodent. It doesn't make a difference. You have to wait till evening, and until that time, you're a sheni l'tuma. In fact, anybody which requires waiting till evening, ben adam, ben kelim, ben midivrei Torah, ben midivrei, whether it's people or utensils, whether it's biblically or rabbinic. The status that he has until the nightfall is sheni, second degree impurity. And now, what does that look like in terms of contact with food and drink? It says the Rambam halacha gimel, tvul yom, a person who is in this state, poisel ochle hatruma umashke hatruma, va'ochle hakodesh umashke hakodesh. He disqualifies, he makes puzzle, food or drink of truma, food or drink of kodesh, sacrificial stuff. Poisel hakoil. He makes everything disqualified. Now this word disqualified is very important. We're going to see this tomorrow, and I've already said it a couple times in previous chapters. The word tamei, impure, means you're impure and you can even transmit your impurity. The word puzzle means you're impure but you cannot transmit your impurity. As we'll see tomorrow, the maximum that truma can go to is shlishi, third degree level. It can't go past that. Kodesh, even when it's a shlishi, is still tamei, it's still impure, it's able to transfer to another level of revi. So when we say that a tvul yom disqualifies food or drink of truma and kodesh, what we mean is that if he touches truma, he makes them third degree. That's when they're puzzle. At that point, they can no longer go any further. And if he touches kodesh, it becomes a revi, a fourth degree, because that's the maximum that it can go to, and that's the point when it becomes puzzle, no longer able to transfer its impurity. As the Rambam immediately describes, Ketzad, what does this mean? Tvul yom shenaga ba'ichlin shel truma. If tvul yom touches truma food, asan shlishi l'tuma. He makes them third degree, one degree down. Mipnei shu k'sheni. He's like a sheni. Sheni transfers to a shlishi. V'chenim naga b'mashkin shel truma. So too if he touches liquid of truma. Timon, he makes them impure. V'hareihin shlishi l'tuma. They become third degree impurity, which is a novelty, because we've seen a few times already that liquid only jumps upwards. When something impure touches liquid, it goes up to being level of a rishon. This is the one exception. Liquids here become shlishi. And that's all for truma. Naga tvul yom b'mashkin shel kodesh. If a tvul yom will touch liquid of sacrifices, Timon, he makes them impure. V'hareihin revi l'tuma. They go down one level to the fourth degree, because maximum he can do is make them puzzle. He gives them the impurity which they cannot pass on, which is revi. But if he were to touch totally unholy stuff, not truma, not kodesh, food or drinks, hareihim tahirim, they're actually fully pure, because as we'll see tomorrow, a sheni level can never transfer his impurity further to unholy stuff. Only truma can go one more level, kodesh two more levels, but chulin stays the way it is. And the Rambam says, "V'din mechusar kippurim oy tvul yom b'negias hakodesh echad hu." even though we're talking now about Tvul Yom, there's another guy who's similar to that. It's called Mechusar Kippurim. He went to the mikveh, sunset already happened, but the next day he has to bring a sacrifice. So until he brings a sacrifice with regards to at least to Kodesh, not to Truma, sacrificial stuff, it's the same thing as a Tvul Yom, he'll make them into a Revi. And so the Rambam summarizes over here, from everything we've spoken about, it becomes clear that liquid can never become second degree impurity. They're either, typically, Rishon, they jump up a level, except for the ones touched by a Tvul Yom, they are either third degree if they're Truma, fourth degree if they're Kodesh. Halacha Dalit says that Rambam, an interesting rule, a very general rule. Anybody who is impure, severe level, less severe level, any bodily fluids which come out of them, like their saliva or their urine, they're considered like liquid which they touch. Whatever would happen to liquid if they touched it, that's what would happen to their own bodily fluids. Meaning, elu va'elu rishon l'tuma k'mesha be'arnu. In both scenarios, they're rishon. If you're an av, your liquid which you touch becomes first degree. Same thing, bodily fluids are first degree. Chutz mi zav v'chaveirav, except for the last set of laws, Zav and his friends, the four metame mishkav u'meishav, shemashkin hayetzin mehen av tuma. They're an avatuma, and the special law is that certain bodily fluids are also an avatuma. Umashkin shahazav v'chaveirav neigin bahen tchila, whereas if they would touch liquid from the outside, it become a rishon l'tuma. But their own bodily fluids are an avatuma. And the Rambam goes even further. Afilu eichel eichlin tmein. Even if a person eats impure foods, or drinks impure liquids, which is a rabbinic imposition of impurity, as we saw in chapter 8, any bodily fluids which come out of him before going to mikveh are like fluids which he would touch, which even though they're a sheni, if they touched a liquid, it jumps up to rishon. So their bodily fluids are also a rishon. And so too, a person who goes to the mikveh that day is waiting for nightfall. So even though liquid that he touches goes down a level, but the point is, with regards to this halacha, mashkin hayotzin mimenu kemashkin shu nageh bahen. Fluids that come out of him have the same status as liquids which he touches. She'enan mitamin achedim klal, where they can definitely not transmit their impurity further to others. Ela im naga b'mashke chulin harehin tahidin. Rather, if it's unholy liquid that he touched, they're completely pure. V'im naga b'mashke truma harehin shlishi. If he touches liquids of truma, they're all third degree. If he or somebody missing his sacrifice touched sacrificial meat, they become fourth degree impurity. The point is, a Tvul Yom always makes liquid at the lowest level of impurity possible. So practically for the Tvul Yom, that would actually mean that his bodily fluids are fully pure, because they're definitely not truma or kodesh. So they go into the category of chulin, which is just pure. Halacha hey, v'ata yisboer. That's all what we've explained until now. Now pay attention to this. We're going to explain a new rule. She'ein shlishi shebetruma, v'loy revi shebekodesh, mitame mashke acher eichel acher. Once you get to this level, truma, which is third degree, kodesh, sacrificial meat, which is fourth degree, they can never make any food or drinks impure. Needless to say that they're not going to be transmitting impurity to utensils. Right, so maybe let's use this. Same chart, just getting a little smaller. Same thing, Shlishi Revi, if they touch something else, nothing happens to it. Lefikach, therefore, Kedei Rashim Leia Mashke. You have a pot that's full of liquids. V'nagabahen Tvul Yom. Comes a person, again, after his immersion, before the nightfall, Tvul Yom, and he touches the pot and the liquids. Im haya mashke chulin hakoltar. So if it's chulin, so a sheni cannot make a shlishi when it comes to chulin, so it's totally pure. If it's truma liquid, so it goes down a level to a shlishi, they're disqualified. That means they're impure. They cannot make others impure. And the pot is totally pure because a pot cannot be affected by a sheni. Maximum tvul yom is a sheni. However, if the tvul yom had his hands were impure, not only because he was in the mikveh. In other words, his status of impurity wasn't just because he was in mikveh waiting for nightfall, but he touched one of the things that makes his hands impure, as we saw the other day. So then, the liquid is always impure, whether it's truma or not. This would turn out to be a stringency in hands that a tvul yom doesn't have, because the tumas yadayim will pass on to liquids, while the tvul yom will not. There is also the other way. There's a stringency in the tvul yoim over impure hands. As we're going to see in chapter 14, if you're in doubt about tumah of the hands, you go lenient, you're pure. If you're in doubt about whether you're being a tvul yoim, in other words, a person went to the mikvah and we're not sure if he touched truma or not, we're going to go stringently, and we're going to say that it is impure, because the tvul yoim's impurity is biblical. And whenever you're in doubt about a biblical matter, you go stringently. Halacha vav ve'echad tar sheyadav tmeis. Oy tvul yoim sheyadav tmeis. It doesn't matter if it's a completely pure person who has impure hands, or a tvul yoim who has impure hands. They have the power to make unholy liquid impure, jumping them up to Rishain status, giving them power to transmit impurity to other food and drinks, not anything else. Says the Rambam, since we said before that bodily fluids coming out of a tvul yoim are like liquids which he touches, so then tvul yoim shenafal meruka yimimei raglav al kikar shel truma, if bodily fluids came out of a tvul yoim, he spit or urinated, and that liquid touched a truma loaf, harei zeh tahor, the loaf is pure. Not sure who wants to eat it now, but if you want to, it's pure. Because the status of his bodily fluids are like liquids which he touched. And since they're not truma or kodesh, they're totally pure. So the liquid coming out of him is also pure. And therefore the loaf is pure. Halacha zayin. Now we're done with tvul yoim. And now we're going to have a big summary that I'd like to categorize here in this chart. This is how we'll look at it, okay? We're going to see all the possible levels. B stands for biblical impurity. R stands for rabbinic impurity. And the X with the green means that it cannot become impure at that level. Okay, so we have Av, Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Revi. Let's take a look. Mikol elu hadvarim shehikdamnu levadam. From all the things that we've now so far prefaced to explain them, Ata lamed, you learn the following. And first we're beginning with this column, people. She ha'adam yiya avtuma. It's possible for a person to become a primary source of impurity, biblically. For example, you touch a dead body, you go into a room with a corpse. V'yiyeh rishon l'tuma. He could also be first degree impurity, midivrei Torah. All biblical. How do you become a rishon biblically? You touch an av, you touch a carcass, touch a rodent, easy. It's impossible for a person to become second degree impurity biblically, only rabbinically. Because minat Torah, once you reach the status of rishon, you can never pass on your impurity to people. The only time you can become a sheni is rabbinically, and when is that? It's the guys we talked about in chapter 8 and chapter 9. A person who eats impure food, impure drink, or a person who enters with his head and most of his body into a body of drawn water, not fresh water. All these are considered second degree impurity rabbinically. But there's no way to go past that. Even rabbinically, a person can never become on the level of shlishi or revi. Any other utensils besides for pottery, it's possible to become a primary or a first degree source of impurity biblically. Same thing. They can become an avatuma if they touch a person who touched a dead body. Same thing if they touch a carcass or a rodent, they become first degree impurity. Minat Torah. The only way for a keli to become second degree impurity is only rabbinic. For if it becomes impure from impure liquids, so we said in chapter 7 that these utensils will become impure at the level of a sheni. It's a rabbinic imposition. But again, shlishi revi is impossible for regular utensils. Halacha ches. What about pottery? Kvar b'yarnu, we already explained. Sheklicheres lo yiyah avtuma lo elam. Lo midivrei Torah v'lo midivrei seifrim. A pottery utensil can never become a primary source of impurity. That's impossible. It can never become an av, biblically or rabbinically. V'yiyah or yiyah rishon l'tuma midivrei Torah. It could become, though, first degree impurity, biblically, if, let's say, a rodent or any other primary source of impurity enters its airspace. V'sheni midivrayim, and it can also become a second degree, rabbinically, In nitma b'mashkin kishara kelim, like in the last case, if impure liquids touches it, it becomes impure. V'lo yiyeh ha'adam v'lo ya'kelim le'olam shlishi v'lo revi. People, utensils, all utensils can never become third degree or fourth degree, not biblically or rabbinically. That's impossible. Even when the rabbis made the decree of shlishi and revi, as we'll say, it's only in food and drink, not in people and utensils. Halacha tes, ha'oichlim, food, starting with food. They can never become primary source of impurity. That's impossible. Even if they touch a corpse directly, they only become a rishon. Yeah? They can become, though, first degree and second degree biblically. That's the new thing over here. All the other people utensils are only rabbinically a sheni. Food can become a biblical sheni. How? Because if a person or a utensil is a rishon, which is totally biblically possible, if they touch food, they make it a sheni, biblically. Additionally, foods can become third and fourth degrees impure rabbinically, assuming that it's truma and kodesh, not any regular food, as we'll see again tomorrow. Halacha yud. What about liquid? Liquid is kind of like the most powerful because it can become everything. Hamashkin yu avtum divrei Torah kaged mechatas. Liquid can become primary source of impurity only in one case: paraduma water. Paraduma water is primary source of impurity. Oh no, and there's more cases. Veruke shel zav u'mei miraglev, and the bodily fluids of a zav and his urine. V'yurishon l'tumah midivrei Torah. They can be a first degree biblically. Yeah, this is a mistake. It should be a B here. It should be red. Biblically. They touch the primary source of impurity, they become a rishon. If liquids touch any rishon l'tuma, they become, whether people or utensils, these guys, they become biblically impure, sheni level, biblically. The thing is that even though biblically they become a sheni, but the rabbi said any liquid always jumps up to rishon. That's why I guess here there's an R, because rabbinically it always goes back up. Yeah, that's what it says. So they become like a rishon with regards to the power of making others impure rabbinically. If they touched a sheni, people, food or utensils, so the rabbi said that they become like a rishon, and they cannot make others impure as well. There's one case where liquids become third and fourth degree rabbinically. And what is that? The beginning of the chapter. Ketzad, how does that look like? If a tvul touches truma liquid, it becomes a shlishi. If it's kodesh liquid, it's a revi. And therefore, after the rabbinic imposition, it's impossible to find second degree liquids. Because if it's going to be touching a rishon, it becomes a rishon. And if it's tvul yaim, it's lishi revi. And truth is, you never really have liquid that's not first degree. Chutz mimashka tvul yaim, you put in b'kodesh, except for the tvul yaim, where a person lacking his sacrifice. When it comes to sacrificial meat, that they become shlishi and revi, k'mesha bi'arnu, shehu pasol midivreim ve'enem etamim, where we explain that it becomes rabbinically disqualified, not impure to the point of transmitting further, but they themselves will become impure at the level of third degree or fourth degree.